and welcome to Funny Mental Lives. I am your host, Sonja van Breda, and I'm here today with my guest, Larry Bryant. Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here today.
It's great to be here. Great to be a part of this.
So, I actually don't really know a lot about you, so where are you from?
So I'm originally from Washington, D.C. My family's from D.C. I was born in an Air Force brat, so as a young kid, I started moving a lot with my family. A lot of my young life I lived in Hawaii and
Cool.
different times in Texas and Virginia and Maryland.
Wow.
So yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff.
Can't imagine what that's like. I moved a little bit, but nothing absolutely like that.
Right. Well, yeah. The moving only continued for a long time actually. Went back to D.C. area for high school. Went to college in Virginia, and then left college and played semi-pro football and moved, back and forth from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Texas, to Georgia, back to D.C. and then Texas again. Hopefully here in New York, I am at home. And
how long have you been here in New York?
I moved up here from D.C. 4 years ago.
4 years?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm more of a New Yorker than you are.
Yeah. I won't consider myself a full-fledged New Yorker until I'm here about 10 years or I get mugged.
Hopefully the 10 years. That would be preferable.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm on my 9th and I'm yet to be mugged, so,
Well,
and I'm an easier target than you, come on.
fingers crossed.
Have you ever gone overseas at all, or in your travels?
For work, my last job, I did a lot of national work, and I had the opportunity to go to Mexico City for a conference, to Austria,
cool.
Vienna, Austria for another conference. For myself, I've been different places in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. So I've been
That's pretty cool.
kind of traveling. And
What was the job that helped you to travel?
I worked for an organization called Housing Works, where I was the director for national advocacy and organizing. And a large part of my job, was to help organize and support grassroots organizing and leadership around the country, mostly around issues related to health disparities, HIV and AIDS care, treatment, housing instability, things like that. So supporting those communities where they are and being able to develop grassroots advocacy networks where they are. So I think I went to just about all the states at one point for that job. I mean, one thing we've noticed is that when you talk about the HIV/AIDS epidemic, when you talk about the drug epidemic, housing, or homelessness, there are a lot of consistent cofactors, and a lot of those intersections include mental health, mental illness, people who have lack of access to care and treatment. Among the things that they have lack of access to is mental health support services, whether it's from early intervention and detection to care and treatment support along the way as a child, as a teenager, and certainly as an adult. Once being diagnosed HIV positive, for example, is in itself a traumatic experience.
Absolutely.
All the different things that people live, just in their lives, without mental health check-ins every once in a while, or at least being able to identify those indicators, don't exist if you don't have access to the proper treatment and care, to the right eyes and ears to do that.
It's a big, life-changing experience to have to deal with on your own. So it's wonderful that things are changing and there's places to go and people to talk to.
Well, things are changing. The more they're changing, the more they seem to stay the same. So. I mean, a lot of the fights are, whether we're talking about ending AIDS or we're talking about addressing housing instability, access to care. I mean, all these things are consistent fights, particularly for those who are most marginalized, who don't really have a voice in Congress. A lot of poor people, marginalized communities, transgender community, LGBT community, etc., women, Everyone except those eight or 10 people that one was elected and the
and
7 or 8 that he's friends with.
Yeah, it's just like him. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Sorry about that.
So what started your interest in mental health?
So my interest in mental health. So my interests, other than it seemed like just a great fit for my skills, is just identifying my own living with mental illness. Not just as an adult, but remembering as young as 13, 14 years old. So being with NAMI helped me or gave me kind of access to the information, to a lot of education, and I guess most importantly, the support to be able to talk about it myself, to talk about me, myself.
I was going to say, because being in Navy, was it Air Force, Navy?
I'm an Air Force brat, so my dad was in the Air Force, I wasn't in the military.
Being an Air Force brat, though, that's going to affect you in some way or another.
Yeah, moving around a lot, I mean, it was great. One of the things that was amazing about moving around as a kid was, and my dad used to say this to me and my siblings all the time, is it gave us an opportunity to see outside our own backyard.
Absolutely.
It gave us an opportunity to see different parts of the country, in some cases different parts of the world, introduce yourself to other cultures, other foods, other communities,
sure.
And not feel or live in a kind of a sheltered area.
Sure.
But the downside of that I grew to realize was it was very difficult to make or to establish relationships. Every couple of years or less, we were moving.
Right.
My parents divorced when I was very young, so not only was I moving around with my dad, but I was moving back and forth between my mom and dad, and that was, similar to my siblings as well. And so I had a pretty tough time, especially growing up, establishing relationships, friendships.
I imagine most would going through that.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the seeds of how that. Now, would some of these things exist if I did move? I mean, I don't know.
You can't know what would have happened if you stayed in the one place. Like, you can't know what would have been different. Because I grew up pretty much in the same place, and I had difficulty with establishing relationships. So it's also to do with people and, I mean, I think it's tough for any kid to have to move around that much and still learn how to establish healthy relationships.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I learned a lot of things, and I mean, one of the things I had was, I mean, as consistent activities. I was in sports.
That's what I was going to say. You mentioned football before.
Played football, played sports. So I had that as a consistent thing, and usually wherever I went, that's the one thing I could hold on to that kind of gave me an identity.
So I don't know how it works in American high schools, but was it easy enough to just join a football team at school, or?
Oh yeah. And I was pretty good. So.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So
that helps.
You
might have sucked, and then.
Well, I probably still could have joined, but it helped that I was good. Because, like I said, a lot of my self-identity came through sports, which kind of carried me through until I figured out the rest of my identity.
That's good to have.
And and then just it helped. Sports helped to develop kind of consistency with my existence.
What about like a sense of achievement for winning a game or whatever?
That was good. I mean, winning was good.
It helps.
Winning was good. I had a lot of
important.
I mean, we had, particularly in high school, we were state champions. We were, great team. In college, we weren't as good a team, but it was still, I had a scholarship to go to Norfolk State University, and it was fun being there. The sense of achievement while playing and just playing at the level that I did, being an All-American, getting pro tryouts, that kind of thing. That it's gratifying on one level that you've reached a certain talent, reached a certain standard. It's also hugely hugely stressful because at least in the moment, because you want to make it, and the competition is obviously pretty tough. But it was fun. I mean, I don't regret any time.
What about siblings? You said you have siblings.
I am the oldest of 6. So
Wow.
I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Oh wow. Yeah. So it's 3 of each.
3 of each. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you kind of form closer relationship with certain siblings, or were all of you just sort of consistent throughout?
Well, again, because my parents were divorced, both my mom and dad remarried, so we were all kind of spread out, and we had, I probably spent the most time with my brother, who's 3 years younger than I, and then I have a sister 3 years younger than him, and then sort of spaced out, I guess, a little more after that. But we've, I think for the older ones, at least before I went to college, I think we spent a pretty good amount of time with.
So you close?
Where we were closer then because I was around more.
Right.
I think as an adult, a lot of them are still much closer. They chit chat and talk, especially with Facebook and everything.
Right.
There's a lot of communication.
So, are you interested in kind of delving a little bit deeper into your personal experiences, or?
Sure. What would you like to know?
Well, do you have like a diagnosis or anything like that? Or?
So, not an official diagnosis from a psychiatrist, but from the different therapists I've seen very recently, it's been narrowed to both depression and anxiety.
Okay.
At times, major depression. At times, some pretty significant anxiety, and it's been repetitive over, I don't know, more than half my life.
Right.
I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was just something wrong with me. Just kind of learning, starting my advocacy work, I started to learn more about some of the issues that impact individuals, not necessarily people who are poor or people who don't have access to care, but just human beings.
Well, it's indiscriminate.
Right.
It doesn't care if you're who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, again, the last year or so, I've been able to kind of, the thing I hadn't been able to do, that I've been able to do in the last year, is to understand myself better.
Oh, that's awesome.
And to prepare for those transitions.
Yeah, very important. So did you like who you met?
I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
You're all right.
I mean, I don't dislike who I met. And there are still things there's a lot of things I'm still learning.
Absolutely. I feel like that's something we should do for the rest of our lives, though. Like constant learning and understanding.
Continuous introductions. Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Hey, remember me? I was here yesterday.
Yeah. I think it makes life more interesting and exciting if you're constantly learning new things about yourself.
That's true. Yeah, and I have about my mind, about my past, about my history, being able to use the information I have now, or that I'm gaining, and apply it to situations 10, 20, 25 years ago and say, well, that makes sense now. Like, now I understand. And going back to Facebook, being able to reconnect with some of the people I knew when I was in high school or in college, or, when I was in my 20s or whatever, to be able to talk to them about, where I am now and what I've learned. And then even for them, it's like,
Did they have any insights as to what they saw
maybe not then.
back then?
Maybe not then.
But now do they sort of have anything?
Now, well, sometimes it makes sense because I see the work I've been doing.
Yeah.
Not just with NAMI, but with Housing Works and other places, and a lot of who I am or who I was then makes sense. Not just, it makes sense to me in some ways, but for the people who kind of knew me and were, separated by a wall or so that I kept at arm's length. Now, and then we're just completely confused or didn't know what was going on, or just didn't know. Now there's a little bit of understanding.
Well, I feel like growing up, because I feel like we're from a similar generation.
Is that a nice way of saying we're about the same age?
About the same age, I'd say so. I have no idea, but I think so.
Okay.
But I think back then it was either people were either, oh, it's fine, you know, whatever, you're good, you're fine, and then they just pretend it never happened and continue on, or they go, oh, see you later, and then disappear very quickly.
It had some of both.
Yeah, but it was like one or the other. There was not much of an effort to try to understand because people didn't really know what was happening.
That's absolutely right.
What to do.
Absolutely right. And again, my earliest feelings of my mental state go back to like I think I was freshman in high school.
Which is how old?
About 15 or so.
Okay,
14, 15.
I get confused by the school levels.
Right.
Yeah, we're high school and that's it.
Ninth grade. So like my first year of high school, like the transition between middle school and high school.
Okay.
That's when I first remember a lot of those conscious thoughts of like, wow, there's something not quite right, or just those dives. I mean, I can't even explain it, you know, in without like using up the rest of the tape. But I also had similar kind of challenges. I was diagnosed HIV positive when I was 18.
Oh, okay.
And being able to, one, kind of figure out, wow, in 1986 when I was diagnosed,
wow.
You know, I was told I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because that's what people did.
That's
with,
right.
They
had no idea what it was.
Right.
Right.
And so I didn't know how to tell people, and then once people found out, or once I did share,
right.
I had, you know, a similar response from people who didn't understand HIV.
Run.
Yes, and so with mental illness, I felt like I was, you know, was kind of living dual, you know, kind of fighting dual stigmas.
Well, HIV was like a death sentence, as you said, back then. Now it's not. Like, people are aware that it's a diagnosis now.
Yeah,
it's manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge difference in the way you could perceive it for yourself, let alone whatever anyone else is one thing, but for yourself there's a big difference between you're going to die or, you know, this is a manageable thing. Like, that's massive.
Well, true, when you have the information. But I would argue that having a mental illness, especially when you're not seeing a therapist, when you're not in any kind of recovery, when you're still kind of in the dark with, you know, your mental illness is in control. Mm-hmm. You can feel at times that this is horrible. I'm going to die. I can't live with this.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people, we both know people who just based on their own mental illness want to escape and committed suicide.
Absolutely.
And because of their own fear or external stigma, decide I'm not going to a doctor, I'm not going to tell anyone, and just kind of live in their own kind of mental health prison.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, that fear, that internal fear is similar. And, you know, we live in a world now where obviously the fear and the ignorance around HIV is not gone, but it's we know a lot more.
Absolutely.
Mental illness, we know a lot more, but that fear
is very much still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, just even trying to get people who don't identify with having any kind of mental health issues to even have a conversation is...
Don't want to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Walls up, heels dug in, head in sand, you know, anything to not talk.
Right.
And it's very difficult, especially if you're someone like, well, for us, who are quite comfortable to talk about it.
Relatively comfortable.
Well, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm probably the most comfortable person I know, but maybe a little too comfortable for other people at this point in time. But to come up against constant walls is just, it's frustrating and it's hurtful, and, you know, it's just very difficult, and then it causes problems for me that I don't understand why. You know, and just a conversation would really change that.
It starts with a conversation.
Right, but I find a lot of people put, even if I'm talking about my own personal story, they somehow put themselves in the middle of it and make it about them. And so maybe they've done something or caused it in some way, or they're somehow responsible, and then I think that has a lot to do with why people don't want to talk.
That's one reason.
I mean, there's many, but you know, that's one of the things I find is quite common.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what about things that you do to relax and enjoy yourself? You know.
So when I'm not working, I'm a photographer. I love to, I love to shoot all over the city. I've been shooting for I don't know 20 years now. I started shooting in the previous life. I was a preschool teacher.
Oh wow!
And I would take pictures of the kids during the day because we as teachers would spend so much time with the kids. We'd see them grow, and in a lot of cases we see things that the parents didn't see between 8 and 4 each day. So what I would do is I started taking pictures of just kind of like photo, casual,
playing or working.
Yeah, playing, working, field trips, whatever. Just kind of keep a scrapbook of the day, and then over the course of a day, you're talking about the course of a year, so you have this whole stream of when. And you see the child growing in front of your eyes. And the parents appreciated that. The kids now, many of them are grown and are on Facebook too, appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So I started from that point, and I went to college. I took some art classes in college, graphic design, things like that. And that kind of shooting the kids it inspired me to, hey, maybe I could do this a little more and be a little more creative. And from that point on, I started buying pieces and parts to a camera and started paying attention to shutter speed and exposure and content and things like that. And now
f-stops? Isn't f-stops?
F-stops in there somewhere, yeah. And
photography.
Well, cameras are fully automatic now. You just got to turn on and it does everything for you. But I have a website and I've shot weddings.
Well, what's your website?
It's Larry Bryant Photography.
.com, I guess.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It's a Wix. It's on Wix. So if you go to Wix, you can.
I just type as long as you Google your name.
Yeah.
So you're a professional photographer, or?
I'm always reluctant to say I'm professional, but I guess I am.
Okay.
I've been published.
Yes.
I've been published. I've received payment.
Well, that makes you professional, I believe, automatically.
We don't want the IRS to know anything. When I was in DC, when I worked in my last job in DC, we did a lot of advocacy work with programs in the White House.
Cool.
And there was like a White House a document that first kind of documented town halls across the country that eventually led to a national HIV/AIDS strategy. I was one of the photographers used to help kind of provide images. So I was officially published on the White House document. So
that is kind of so cool.
So I guess I'm somewhat accomplished, but I enjoy, shooting like photo essays, like things around the city, I do portraits and all kinds of stuff.
That's great.
I just love to shoot.
Photography is a lot of fun. I enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I could ever get paid for it, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say too, because we're talking about demographics and what's a common demographic in terms of mental health, but you are definitely not the common demographic in mental health conversations.
Publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Publicly, that's right. We're people who are open and communicating.
Meaning a black male.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's true. And then being a male in general,
yes.
I think men are far less likely to seek mental health counseling and care, are much less likely to see a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Black people in the black community in general are far less likely to seek a counselor or therapist, and it's more so with men. So one of my, hopefully the visibility that I have in doing my job and with things like this.
This is I'm very excited to have you on.
Right.
By the way.
is to to show that I'm not a unicorn.
No.
I'm not unique. There are a lot of men of color who have been suffering from mental illness, that choose not to seek support, that choose not to have that conversation, that choose not to just ask for help.
Right.
Whether it's black men, Latino, Hispanic, all men of color, and we shouldn't feel that talking about our mental illness or asking for help makes us any weaker or less of a man.
I think it makes you stronger, personally.
It's a step in that way.
And in the part where it is hard for people, it's not common for people to talk about it, the fact that you can just makes you so much stronger, I think.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, being honest, it's not, I've been kind of digging that hole outside of that, hole, digging myself out of the hole that I put myself in over dozens of years. So it's not something that happens overnight.
Absolutely
but
not.
The idea that I have power with my voice and with my actions is huge. Even if it's just getting one hand free, because I know that I can get the other hand free.
Do you have any last things you would like to share?
I mean, going back to just talking about, being a man, being a person of color, how important it is for people, for anyone to not feel less than worthy of asking for help, feel less than masculine for being in need, and don't always fall for stereotypes.
Absolutely not.
If you have friends, we all have friends, coworkers, family members. Don't assume anything. Always take the time to say, "Hey, is everything okay?"
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be anything wrong. Just just asking, just checking in.
Yeah.
I think anybody, regardless of your situation, would appreciate that. And,
absolutely.
Hope we do more of that in the months and life to come. Yeah.
I mean, it's just really having a moment where somebody else matters, and that's not very difficult to do. It really is as simple as saying, "Hey, how are you?"
Right.
It's that easy.
Yeah, I think so.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Especially in this city of 8-9 million, it's not easy. It's not hard to find someone. Just to say, "Hey, just saying hi,"
Yeah, I admit I've probably had moments in public and people have come up to ask me how I am, strangers, which is really lovely. Even to the point where it's like I could be looking up at a building and they think I need help with directions.
Everything okay?
Like it's like I find New York to be actually quite a friendly city.
I'm glad you said that. There's so many people I know who don't live in New York or never been in New York that are scared to death coming to the city.
Yeah.
And that's probably because the only image they have of New York is like Times Square. Just craziness.
Yeah.
But New York is like one of the most friendly places I've ever been in my life.
Absolutely.
And I would put it up against any place I've been in my life.
Me too. Yeah, well, I mean, it's great to be here, so that's what matters, really.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
You're welcome. Anytime.
All right, well, and this was Mr. Larry Bryant, and I will see you all next time. Bye.